Hello, Wise Man here. This next part of the Easter story is all about remembering, and we're going to do 2 experiments to help us to think about that. So the first is with some bent wire. This wire is made of something called memory metal. It was originally bent into the shape of a word, but I've scrunched it up. So there is no way you can tell what it once said. But because this is memory metal, if I use energy in the form of heat, it will go back to its original shape. I could use fire, but to be safer, I'm going to use hot water. So we drop the memory wire into the hot water. Wow! So the heat energy has helped the memory metal to go back into its proper shape. And we can read the word again. And of course, it says hot. So the wire remembers. That is amazing. So the memory is actually built into the wire itself. And our second experiment, again, is all about remembering. This is something that you can try at school or at home. So here we have 10 unrelated items. They'll stay on your screen for 1 minute, but how many can you remember? So we have a puppy, we have a dragonfly, we have a pencil, we have an umbrella, we have a car, we have a pebble, a tree, plasters, a pine cone, and last of all, we have Harry Potter. Five seconds left. So pause the video now and see how many of those objects you can remember. So let's look at the science of remembering. The way that we've done this so far, those objects will only be in your short-term memory. And that means it's actually pretty difficult to remember all 10, but very well done if you got them all right. Science can help us. One of the things that we could do was if I allowed you to touch each object, that would help you to remember it. Obviously, we can't do that by video, but there is something else we can do. If we attach those objects to a story, so if we have a story that involves all of those 10 objects, it will help us to remember them. We can make up the story. The story can be as silly as you wish. It just helps us to remember. So this is my story for those 10 objects. So Dragonfly and Puppy were the very best of friends. And one day they decided together that they would go to the cinema to see a film. Puppy wrote down with a pencil the time of the film to remember. And when it came to going, it was actually raining. So Puppy got out an umbrella. Dragonfly absolutely hates the rain. So Puppy got the car out of the garage and decided to take them both in the car. As we're driving along, the car hit a pebble in the road. The car swerved off the road and it bumped into a tree. Oh my goodness! But thankfully, both of them were okay. Puppy got out of the car just to check that everything was all right, when a huge pine cone fell out of the tree, bang, landed on Puppy's head. All that Puppy needed, though, was a plaster, and he was okay to drive again. And they got to the cinema, and guess what they watched? Harry Potter, the end. So there's my story attached to all 10 objects. You can actually make up your own story. And of course, you can use your own objects as well. So test your friends, test your parents, go and have some fun. And now I have other items to help us to remember what Jesus did, because at that first Easter, God was getting ready for a really big rescue. So Jesus and his friends were together for a meal. There was lamb, and there was also bread and wine. But Jesus' friends were arguing. What about? Well, they were arguing about stinky feet. You see, you need to remember that back then, people quite often didn't wear any shoes, or if they did, they would wear open sandals. And the streets were really stinky dirty. You see, they'd have animals walking up and down the streets. There'd be cows and sheep and donkeys, and whatever ended up on the street often ended up on their feet. So their feet would be really dirty, and someone had to wash all the dirt away. But it was a horrible job. I mean, would you do it? It was really the job of a servant. I'm not the servant, said Peter, one of Jesus' friends. Neither am I, said Matthew. Quietly, Jesus got up from the table. He took off his outer robe and he picked up a bowl of water and a towel. And he started to wash his friend's feet. You can't, Peter said. If you don't let me wash away the dirt, Peter, Jesus said, you can't be close to me. One by one, Jesus washed all their feet. I'm doing this because I love you, Jesus explained. Do this for one another. Now, one of Jesus' friends had made a bad plan. No one else knew what the bad plan was, but Jesus knew, and so did Judas. Judas was going to help the leaders capture Jesus for 30 pieces of silver. Go on, Judas, Jesus said. And Judas left the meal and he walked out into the night. Then Jesus picked up some bread and he broke it and he gave it to his friends. Jesus then picked up the cup of wine. He thanked God for it and he shared it. My body is like this bread. It will break, Jesus told them. This cup is like my blood. It will pour out. But this is how God will rescue the world. My life will break, and God's broken world will heal. My heart will tear, and your hearts will heal. God will use my blood to wash away all the wrong stuff that people have done. So whenever you eat and drink, remember, said Jesus, that I rescued you. Then they sang their favourite song, and they went out into the night, and they went to their favourite place, the Garden of Gethsemane.